I'm going to share my thoughts about a couple of action models I got on eBay. The directions, first of all, they come with a parts list, which is quite nice and descriptive. The odd thing is with the grand parts list, it doesn't include the key bushing clamp. The vertical does include that, and indeed the grand did not include that part. So I'm assuming if you order both, they only put it in the vertical, but it's not listed here. So I worry that it might not be included with the vertical. I'm hoping they put it in if you only order that one, because they do ask you to use it. And for those of us who know that this is not the ideal way to bush a key, anyone who knows what this is probably cringing right now. But that's what it comes with, and frankly, that's going to be practical when you have to put it together yourself for them to send you, and if you want to do it the right way, you can. If you don't know how to do it, it'll work for this model. It's not like the keys are awesome. Anyway, so the diagram for the grand action is nice and clear. It lists the parts with the same language they have. The upright action is from a book, and it's a little more visually messy. The parts don't necessarily match what you get, particularly the damper. It's a different style of damper, so if someone doesn't know what they're looking at, they might get a little confused, but you can figure it out. The directions with the grand were not overly detailed, but that might have been a good thing because they were detailed enough, and what was missing you could figure out with the diagram they provided, particularly front and back. But the diagram was extremely helpful, whereas with the upright directions, the instructions were much more detailed, but frankly they were confusing, and the diagram that they gave you was just wrong. It did not match the board proportionally things, so I kind of figured out where things needed to go, and I made little pencil marks to where the holes actually are. So I actually got frustrated and just put it together. I just was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not reading the directions anymore. It was not working for me. So here it is. I put it together on my own. It worked much better that way. And between the two of them, the vertical was much easier to put together. I didn't have problems with, well, both of them had an odd problem with the center pin. The instructions said to hammer the center pin in a certain amount, and it hits this. You can't put it in as deep as they want you to. But as long as you know that, that's not a huge deal. The other thing is they said to put the shorter end of this toward the front. I'm not sure what they meant by shorter end, but on this one, if someone didn't know what they were doing, they might think this was the shorter end and they might have put it on sideways, but I'm not sure what they meant. But the pin sticks up very high because it won't go in as far as it needs to. So one could drill a hole and put it in, to the correct depth if they wanted to. Both of these took quite a bit of regulation, but that's not unusual. I didn't run into any major problems with this except the jack button. I'll explain that in a second. The spoon I had to put quite a bit, back to get it to work. The jack button I had to put up not only all the way, but I turned this in order to get it off just a little bit more. So I think this needs to be a little higher. So I'm probably going to re-drill the hole for this, and I'm going to move the regulating rail up just a little so I have more leeway for the jack button. I put the key to some kind of generic specs that seemed to work best for this particular model. I regulated as best I could. I've got it pretty good. Oh, the blow distance wasn't right, and there's no way to move this, so I just turned it. See how it's not right? It was at the angle of the hammer shank, but I turned it to move it forward to get the correct blow distance. So one would have to know how that normally works, because you don't normally turn this. One could drill a hole and make it so you could move it with a wing nut. I couldn't think of the word. With a wing nut on the back side, and you could move this, but for the moment I just turned it. And I think that was the only thing crazy with the vertical. I thought it went together well considering I did the grand first, and I had lots of trouble with it. The instructions didn't say which side to put the damper wire in the damper, so if someone didn't know that, they might put it in the wrong side. I don't know. I'll explain this in a second. I had to trim the damper wire. It was too long. They didn't mention that in the instructions, but that's not a big deal. This is a problem. The damper lever is too far to the back. I'm going to have to re-drill the hole and move it forward. It's not over the key enough, and watch this wire. Look at that. That's kind of ridiculous. So my choices are to bend the wire over and up, but I've trimmed it, so I don't think I have enough wire left to do that. I could bend the wire unnaturally. I've never seen that in a piano, but it would work if I bent it over and up, but I think I'd rather just drill a new hole and move this forward. I can get it to behave a little bit better by turning it, get it over the key a little more. So that's a little better, but it's still messed up. So I'm probably going to fix that myself. And then the capstan, I had to drill a hole in the bottom. I couldn't get the capstan low enough to make everything work. I got the key to some specs that were reasonable and seemed to work with this system. The drop screw is down all the way, so I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong or if that's in the action model. It took a while for me to get things lined up. This has not been easy, and it's not perfect, but if you knew what I went through to get here. The jack button on this one is not quite as problematic. It's down all the way. It's down all the way. So if anything, unless I've got other things wrong, I would want to lower this a hair. But it's fine. It's working. So I've got that. I will have to fiddle with this. I have fiddled with it a lot, but it was hard to get to work. It just was. But I got it. Another thing about the Grand Action model, I did have to add my own punchings. I could not get the key height up high enough, so I did have to add my own punchings. But other than that, I was able to get it to work, to something reasonable. Oh, almost forgot the spring on the repetition lever. This spring was so strong that when I pushed the key up, it wouldn't even the jack didn't even push up the knuckle. It just pushed up. So I really had to weaken this. I mean, I unscrewed the adjuster all the way, and I still had to weaken that spring to get it to work. So it's close. The back check wire hole was too big, so you have to either fill it or epoxy it or something, because it wobbles all over the place. You do have to bend this into place. It is not pre-bent, and nothing is lined up properly. The capstan doesn't line up with the whip bend. The knuckle is not on the right place on the repetition lever or the jack. The jack's not here. Actually, if I just move this out, it's going to line up everything. So I just probably need some travel tape here. But you're going to have to align things. It is not aligned. If you want something to be perfectly correct upon assembly, this is not what you want. If you want something to get the concept of how things work and not necessarily have it perfect for fine regulation or for exam prep, these would be great for that. These are fixer-uppers. They are not like brand new fine action models. Those are about, averaging, I'm guessing, $600 a piece, whereas these are $100 each. I am actually quite satisfied because I feel like I got what I paid for. So I am content. If you don't know what you're doing and you want to buy these, find someone who knows what they're doing, because to fine-tune these, if you don't know what you're doing, is going to be a huge challenge. You might have to alter them. I don't know how consistent these are. Some might work better than others. As long as you have help, as long as there's a piano technician who can put these together for you, or if you are a piano technician, you won't have a lot of trouble, I don't think. It's annoying, but you save money by putting in your time and effort to make up for what wasn't done for you. If you want top quality action models, you're going to have to pay for them. So I hope this information was helpful. These action models do have a place, but for fine exam prep, I think they're not quite what you want, but for learning just the basics, the concepts, how things work, how things go together, they're okay. I think they're all right. So if you have any questions or would like me to show you anything, shoot me an email, maggie@thebutlerschool.org. Have fun regulating.